What does Matt Rhule mean when he says, "Don't tell me the players aren't good enough"? Don't ever say that to me.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets all season.
All right, welcome. It is Thursday, December 4 here on the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Connor Happermid Sherman with you. Matt Rhule spoke at his signing day press conference yesterday. It was signing day, and there was some interesting stuff on that. We will bring you that during this show today. But the topic, of course, at hand was the defensive coordinator. Why did Matt Rhule make the move that he made? Why did he make it so quickly? And what do they need to have going forward? And he really, Mitch, he really got that answered, or you got a sense of kind of what was, how he felt pretty quickly, right away. He was pretty forthcoming with the information on why they sort of did what they did.
Some of his reasoning, which we'll talk about in the second segment, was maybe unorthodox, not what you'd expect to hear from a head coach 2 days after a defensive coordinator is fired. But the nuts and bolts of it, his desire to improve the defense and what he wants to see from the defense moving forward was exactly what you would have expected Matt Rhule to say. Well, for the most part, exactly what you would have expected him to say. I think there were a couple of comments in this clip we're going to play right off the top that we can get into after, one of which I mentioned in the cold open. But yeah, he wants to see them be physical and play hard and show a lot of effort. So I think that we could gather from Nebraska's performance against Penn State and Iowa. I will say this before we get into it. It sounds very much like John Butler's fate as the defensive coordinator was determined by the last 4 halves, 2 games of this season. Going into Penn State, I don't know that he was even on the hot seat with Matt Rhule from the sounds of it. And then it all changed in less than a week.
Yeah, for the halves, for the games, and then, for sort of the mentality of what it looked like when it wasn't working. So without further ado, let's not belabor the point any further. Here is Matt Rhule, sums it up in a cool about 90 seconds here. Here he is.
I think for me, I want someone who it's not scheme, it's our play style and how hard we play. The reality is the last 2 weeks, we haven't played hard enough. We were not the more physical team, and we had done that a lot of times. And so I want player development. I want physicality. I want effort way more than scheme. And so someone who can bring all that out in us. And, I'm up there. Phil's meeting with every kid right now, and I think he's relaying that message for this next month. And that will be what we look for moving forward. There's a play style that we want, and I think it was on display early in our tenure here. It has not been on display quite as much. And even though the numbers were good, in this league, in this stadium, you better stop the run, and run the football. And it's easy just to throw it on the players. I don't throw things on the players. There's only one rule working for me, and that's don't tell me the players aren't good enough. Don't ever say that to me. So you can evaluate and say, hey, this guy's got to get stronger. This guy's got to get bigger. Hey, we have a hole here. Let's go get this guy. I have no problem with that. But I want a coordinator who gets 11 guys to play as one.
All right, so there's a lot there. First, I want to say, before we get into the scheme, before we get into the players, this 11 as one comment, I mean, it seems very innocuous, like it's something that anybody would say about any defense or any offense. Did you catch I don't know. I think this was way under the radar, but it was pointed out to me that there was a defensive coordinator out there in the college football world who, right on the heels of Matt Rhule saying we want 11 as one, then tweeted 11 as one, like with like block numbers in blue emoji type things.
Interesting. No, I did not see this.
And of course, the theory is, well, this guy heard Matt Rhule say that, and it's his way of communicating that he also believes in 11 as one. So he must be the defensive coordinator that Matt Rhule is going to hire. I don't know. It sounds pretty.
Who is it?
Pretty cryptic and pretty conspiracy-ish. It is Vince Karras from Toledo. He's the Toledo defensive coordinator, and at 12:34 p.m. on Wednesday, he posted 11 as one with a rocket ship after
That's amazing.
One. The Toledo Rockets. And it's followed in his comments by a number of Nebraska fans saying, come restore the order, coach.
Okay.
Right. Husker. Here's Matt Rhule. You don't say hashtag 11 as one.
Okay. That's seems like a hilarious coincidence. Potentially. I don't know. But I don't know a defensive coordinator who wouldn't say that. Like,
I know.
Of course, everyone would say that. And I think
what we're right after Rhule said it.
It seems like a coincidence. I guess I don't know, or maybe this guy just really likes listening to press conferences. Or,
it could be that. He's a former head coach at the Division III level.
Yeah.
He coached Mount Union, the Division III super powerhouse with some kind of a gaudy record. He followed his father as the coach at Mount Union and had some kind of a gaudy record of like 96-4 in several years there, and has been at Toledo as the DC for 5 or 6 years. He might be a great coach. Like, he very well might be a great coach. He might not be involved in the slightest with Nebraska, or maybe he is, and he's trying to get involved with Nebraska. And he saw Matt Rhule's press conference and was like, I'm gonna get in on this. I'm gonna get OOU here. I'm gonna become OOU. And so he posted that. Probably not. I really think Nebraska, no matter what, and this limits your pool of candidates, but I think Matt Rhule's in a position where he's hiring a third coordinator in 4 years, and he needs somebody with experience at the Big Ten level or equivalent, like SEC Big Ten level. I don't know that and I know Indiana did it with the head coach, and that was great. This is not Nebraska. This is not that kind of a hire for Nebraska. I think it would be a gamble for him to hire, whether it's Vince Karras or not, any kind of a coordinator who's coming from the MAC or the Sun Belt. I think is a risk.
Yeah.
Everything's a risk.
Another thing that Rhule said about Butler outside of that clip was,
I move on from that.
He's just not he just wasn't a fit for me, I believe was the quote. And so I think you pair that along with those 90 seconds that you just heard. And I think the picture becomes pretty clear about sort of what we're looking for here and what it was with Butler. And, Mitch, you and I talked about this yesterday on my show. Butler's an NFL guy, and NFL guys, tend to believe or think from the perspective of scheme, because the players in the NFL already have a full baked in understanding. You get them when they completely get the fundamentals, blocking and tackling and all these things, being in the right place. You don't advance to the NFL if you're not like 100% on board with that and the effort stuff, like all the way across the board. So in the NFL, it's about scheme, and that is true. In college, it is about edge, it is about effort, it is about blocking and tackling, it is about fundamentals. And so you could play any scheme at the college level. If you have those principles and you're physical, you're going to be able to have a pretty good defense and do the 11 for 1 thing and all that stuff. And so that tells me that Butler, wasn't necessarily that. And in the whole, don't tell me the players aren't good enough thing, like Nebraska had smaller defensive linemen this year, and NFL guys would probably be like, hey, look, we need to go out and get bigger defensive linemen to be able to do this thing. Makes a lot of sense to me. And then looking forward, it's a situation where you're saying, all right, now I can clear the path and I can understand exactly what Matt Rhule is looking for.
2 questions as a result of what you just said. Did Matt Rhule change his thinking after he saw John Butler in his NFL? He knew John Butler had an NFL background when he hired him in July of 2024. And then he knew that John Butler had an NFL background a year ago when he promoted him to defensive coordinator. So he had 2 opportunities. I understand the first one was a bit forced because Nebraska was in a tough spot to try to find a secondary coach a month before training camp or 2 weeks before training camp. So I can kind of understand you might compromise your standards just a bit to get the best coach. But last year it wasn't that. Like he could have hired a defensive coordinator, much like he's about to do now. And he chose the guy on staff who he'd worked with for 6 months. And I suppose Rhule liked what he saw from Butler, but this scheme doesn't matter stuff. It flies in the face a bit for me when you look at the decisions that Nebraska has made about its defense of several times in the Matt Rhule era, because a big part of the allure of Tony White coming from Syracuse and his background as a aficionado of the 3-3-5, he's cutting edge with the scheme that he brings. He's going to present something different for the Big Ten to deal with. When I wrote about Tony White in December of 2023, right after Matt Rhule got hired and made that hire, it was all about this unique scheme that he was going to bring and how that was going to push up the Nebraska defense. So now to say that it's not about scheme, I get that it's about effort and it's about doing the right things and being in the right place, but it seems to be a change of heart from and maybe it's not. Maybe it's just that Rhule hasn't verbalized this.
Well,
that would be my guess.
I would say this: like look at like Jim Knowles, who we've mentioned on this podcast over the last couple of days. He is a big scheme guy, and his defense is notoriously difficult to learn and be comfortable in, and it worked at Ohio State. I wonder why. Those guys have the NFL sort of intangible things already, but you have to have that in order to do it. So scheme, I shouldn't say scheme doesn't matter. It does, as long as you have the first thing first. And I think Nebraska lacked the first thing, the fundamental stuff this year. And so I thought it was always a little bit puzzling why he brought up Butler to be the DC. Not only for the whole training ground thing that we always talk about, but also the NFL stuff that we just talked about too. So it was always a little bit puzzling to me. I think they just misfired on that.
It may be that they just needed him. It may be that they needed him, that they were in a tight spot a year ago, that Rhule tested the waters on a couple of defensive coordinators during bowl season last year, and it didn't work out, if that's the case. And they said, all right, we got to do John Butler right now because we're getting pummeled in the transfer portal and we have ground to make up. So let's get to the bowl site. We're getting Dana locked up. Let's do it with the defensive coordinator too. But not a position you want to be in as a head coach. And it's not the position that Nebraska wants to be in this month as a head coach. You need to get the best coach. And he said he wants to get somebody by January 2nd. So you got a little time. Portal's a little move back this year, but get to it. All right. The second question I had in relation to your comments about Matt Rhule's comments coming up right after this. Exciting news right now. A word from a new sponsor of the Locked On Nebraska podcast, Aura Frames. The holidays are here, which means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, something personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap. It's a way to share memories, because Aura is not your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos before gifting it. Think about that. So when your giftee, when your loved one, when your friend plugs it in, the memories are already there. No apps to figure out, no setup headaches, just instant smiles. Would you like to give this to your grandparents, your parents, some newlyweds, anyone who loves photos? The packaging comes gift ready with no price tag, no wrapping needed. It's a huge win. It's a holiday gift, the holiday gift that actually gets used, not forgotten in a drawer. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting Aura, AURA frames.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames named number one by Wirecutter like that, by using promo code college at checkout. That's Aura, AURA frames, and promo code college. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and the frames sell out fast. So order yours now and get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Back with you on this Thursday episode of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen, and thanks for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Get your mailbag questions in. We'll be doing that tomorrow on a Friday before championship weekend in college football. LockedOnNEB@gmail.com is the way to reach us for the mailbag. All right, one more thing before we put a bow on Matt Rhule's comments there in the opening segment about the defensive coordinator. We teased it at the beginning. Matt Rhule said, "Don't tell me the players aren't good enough. Don't ever say that to me." You mentioned it. I'm wondering, like, is this a direct response to John Butler? Did John Butler tell Matt Rhule that the players aren't good enough? Did that ultimately cost him his job?
Well, I don't know if it was exactly like that, but that would be my guess. Yeah, I mean that'd be my guess as to why he said that. I mean, and like I said, it makes sense. It would make sense coming from Butler.
Yeah.
Right, where they did need better players to run the scheme that they were trying to do. Right, so I that makes sense to me, and that's where Rhule came to the conclusion of like, hey, it's not personal, man. Like we're clearly not a fit here. Like it didn't work. And so that's it.
He said, "Don't ever say that to me." Like,
Yeah.
whoa, okay. I won't say that to you. We can say it to him, but if you want to work for him, I guess you don't want to say that to him. And Butler, he walked into a situation where he had just lost in the last couple of weeks off the Nebraska defense. Ty Robinson, Nat Hushmaker, Nat. What did I call him? Nash Hutmacher.
There it is.
He had just lost Prince. I'm going to try this. Prince Will Uman-Mielen. He had just lost Jamari Butler. He had just lost James Williams. So you could look at that and say, yeah, the players, we need some players. The guys I have right now aren't good enough. Look at who you're throwing out there this year on the defensive line. And there's a case to be made that they weren't good enough, but it's not Matt Rhule's cup of tea.
So many people had took issue with that yesterday because like I got a bunch of tweets right away, and it was like, what do you mean don't tell me the players are never good enough? When you go into the transfer portal, that means that you think the players aren't good enough. So we're talking about two different things here. Two different things. Let me just make this very, very clear. All right. So if you're a coach, if you're a defensive coordinator, and you're telling your head coach during the season, you're saying our players aren't good enough to do what we're doing right now. That like, and you're the head coach and you hear that, I would blow my top. Like, absolutely. Like, it doesn't matter if the players aren't good enough doing the season. You can't fix it right now. You have to work around the fact that your players aren't good enough right now. And then in the offseason, you say, hey, look, our players aren't good enough. We need to go get better players. Great. Awesome. We should always be looking for better players. And so people are trying to do the double, the like, hey, you can't say that and also do this at the same time. We're talking about two different things. I can't believe how people don't understand context. If a coach says that during the season, like that is a telltale sign. Like I completely agree with Rhule. You can't be saying that stuff during the season. You just have to figure it out. It is your job to figure it out. And that's where I think the rub happens with Butler and Rhule.
Look at you, the voice of reason. I like it. You do need context. You do need context there. And there is context if you just listen to the whole clip. Go back and listen to the whole clip. He says, it's okay if you say we need more size or we need more speed. I think he just doesn't want an assistant coach or a coordinator coming out and blaming the players and saying, we can't do this with the players that we have right now. Well, too bad, because we got a game Saturday and we got to do it.
Right. Hey, and a couple weeks ago after the Penn State game, he had a press conference and, it's like, hey, why did why did you guys get run over in this game by Penn State? And you can't say because the players aren't good enough. You just can't, because those are your players. That's what you have to figure out.
I appreciated John Butler's honesty between the Penn State and Iowa games. Maybe he was too honest, and maybe he was having those same conversations with Matt Rhule. One of the things that he said about that made me raise my eyebrows and kind of start to do math in my head was that only 1% to 2% of the players on this roster are going to make it to the NFL and play at the next level. And my thought was, well, it should be a little higher than that. Like, what? Yeah. That's maybe a low end estimate there, but
they need better players for sure. They need better players, but you can't.
And he wasn't talking specifically about Nebraska. He was making a comment about college football. Like, he was down on players in college football, but 1% to 2%, like, yeah, if you're at Mountain Union, but we're in the Big Ten, and it should be higher than that.
Yep. You always need better players, but you can't do anything about it on November 15th or whatever it was.
Yeah. All right, we'll stop overanalyzing that comment, but a couple of other things to get to before we play a Rhule clip about the quarterbacks and Dylan Raiola in particular. TJ Lateef not practicing for a while when Nebraska resumes practice next week. Next week is going to be all about the young players and the development. Rhule says that they've got a number of guys who are just about to break out. So do with that what you will. He used Emmett Johnson as the example, said Emmett was in this position a couple of years ago, and look at what has happened with him. So they feel like they have some players on the verge, and next week is big for them to be able to get expanded reps at practice. Then the Huskers will take a little bit of time off in the week that follows, and this is going to line up with their exams and the end of the semester schedule. And they'll be back that week before Christmas to hit it hard in Lincoln. And then he mentioned December 26th as a travel date for the bowl game if it's a New Year's Eve game, which means that Matt Rhule thinks that Nebraska's going to Vegas because that's the December 31st game that's in play for Nebraska. So he also wants to take a hard look at, quote, everything we're doing in the program. He's tasked Corey Campbell, Nebraska's strength coach, to look at everything from training schedules to all of the non-football stuff that they're doing and see if there's stuff that they can do better. He's going to study it, Rhule says, and then they'll make changes if they need it. And then finally, a little bit more on the DC. Rhule said he does not have a specific coach in mind, or didn't have a specific coach in mind when he made that move with John Butler on Monday. Other than that, Phil Snow is going to do this for the bowl game. Snow likely not a candidate long term. And by the way, Snow has asked Mike Eckler to help with the defense, to come bring some of his energy, his juice to the defense here in bowl season.
I love it. I love that. I want a little bit more of that. I mentioned this to you yesterday, but I wonder if Eckler is. I wonder if Eckler. They think about him as the full-time defensive coordinator. I don't know. I just wonder. I don't know anything, but man,
that goes into my bucket of haven't done it at the Big Ten level. I know North Texas, he was the DC there, but hey, and maybe that's not going to be a big thing to Matt Rhule. But
if you're looking for edge and fundamentals and energy and juice, you got a guy.
John Butler had done it at the Big Ten level for 1 year at Penn State and didn't work out for him. But that's probably a question that should have been asked to Matt Rhule yesterday. And the next time we get a chance to talk to him, it will be during this bowl season. Is how is it essential for you? Is it a deal breaker to have someone who's coordinated a defense at the Big Ten level? It might be a moot point by that point because the coach could be in place.
All right, we still have a couple more things to get to when we come back on the other side here on the Locked On Nebraska podcast. But first, a word from the FanDuel Sportsbook, where the NBA continues to roll on. There's no better place to get in on that sweet, sweet action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the association. So you can miss the start of the game, or you can get in early, miss the start of the game, and live bets are still rolling for you. Everything from who might score next to the game, fourth quarter comebacks, individual player props, of course, beforehand as well. Same game parlays are always there for you on FanDuel. You're going to be more locked into the game than you have ever been. And yeah, we might need that a little bit around this time of year as it pertains to NBA games. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet hits. So head to FanDuel.com, Sign up and play whatever game it is you want to play with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, like I said, or like Mitch said earlier, last call for mailbag questions. Get those in. Tomorrow is Friday already, so we'll have that for you coming up. I'm sure there's a lot that people are wondering
This week
about.
went fast.
I have something for you, Mitch. So this is going to combine like a couple of the topics that we have laid out here for this final segment. I find it interesting that Rhule said he was being they were selective, obviously, and they were because everybody knew it was going to be a smaller class this year, but specifically as it pertains to in-state guys this year. And
Do a whole pot on this.
And they wanted guys who felt like, they looked at guys and they evaluated them through the prism of, could this guy help us beat Ohio State? And, nothing against Jace Reynolds, but that was the one guy from in-state they took in this class. And he was the one guy that maybe met that criteria. I found that interesting.
Well, there's a quarterback at Millard South who could help Nebraska win.
He's literally committed to Alabama. Signed with Alabama.
He's no longer committed. He's signed. Signed with Alabama. Okay, there's two things there. Jace Reynolds, one, they loved his athleticism. Like they thought this was a guy with a high ceiling. And there have been others that have come in the same way from Omaha, from like the Elkhorn and Millard schools. They seem to produce a number of these players. One of them went into the transfer portal yesterday, or announced his intentions to go into the transfer portal. Safety Caden Vermas from Millard North was a player who came in. I mean, we're talking about a guy like Gage Stenger from Millard South a few years ago. Players who tested well at camp. Nebraska saw athleticism in them, either this staff or the previous staff. They got offers, and Stenger was he's unfair to categorize in the same way because he was a special teams standout who was hurt before the season, or he would have been a factor this year with Mike Eckler's group. But I'm not sure that Jace Reynolds, that's how he projects. They project him as a good linebacker at Nebraska, but it's not like he's not in the conversation of being like the most dominant player in all of Nebraska high school football. I mean, those guys are all at Millard South and Omaha West Side for the most part, and for the most part did not get offers from Nebraska. Now, Isaac Jensen, the tight end from the state champion Millard South, who signed with Missouri yesterday, he was offered by Nebraska. Nebraska did want him, and he picked Mizzou, and then Jet Tamala, the quarterback who signed with Alabama, that was a Dayton Raiola thing. He did not get a Division I offer until after Dayton Raiola was committed to Nebraska. And should Nebraska have seen his skill before Iowa State and made the first offer? Maybe, but the Raiola thing was a special circumstance, unquestionably. If that hadn't been Dayton Raiola and he had just been a quarterback from Buford, Georgia, without the name attached to him, then Jet Tamala might have been offered first from Nebraska. Might have never been offered by Alabama. Might have signed with Nebraska yesterday, but that's it.
Yeah. So it was a small class. It was always going to be a small class. People getting on Nebraska about having a crappy ranking in their class this year.
Darian Jones also very much wanted by Nebraska. Brother of Donovan Jones, went to Iowa, picked Iowa, saw that game, and he picked Iowa long ago, but he saw that game on Friday and said, yep, I made the right decision.
Do we want to play this clip he was asked, I think by you, right, Mitch, what needs to happen with Dylan Raiola's progression?
I think we can squeeze that in, and then we'll get to some preview of the weekend in various sports.
Let's do it. Here is Matt Rhule on his outlook for Dylan Raiola in the next several weeks here.
I think Dylan's at a place right now where you're going through a hard time when you're injured, and what I've encouraged him to do is to embrace it and attack it. Like let it hurt that you're not out there playing, and consistently write down every single day, like, what are you learning and what do I need to do? Dylan made tremendous progress from year one to year two, but there's progress that needs to be made moving forward, and so. I want to see him own that. I don't want it can't be Corey, it can't be Kristen, it can't be me, it can't be Glenn. I want to see him take it and run with it, even in this time. And so, Dylan's a tremendous worker. He loves to work at those things. I want to see him, but I want to see him make a jump. This is year 3 coming up for him, and he's got to become the quarterback that we all know that he can be. And that's honestly, in my opinion, will help him. But that falls on his shoulders, and I'm anxious to see him do it.
I really thought that Dylan had been running with it here for the last 12 months. He was a freshman, and some things don't come as easily for a freshman. It's hard to step to the forefront, although he tried. And then the narrative with Dylan throughout the offseason last year was that he was taking the initiative, that he was running with it, that he was prioritizing his own physical condition and all of that. So, but I guess he can do more, and that's the thing. And the big reason that I asked this question was it was open ended. It was what do you envision for Dylan Raiola over the months ahead? It's because there's questions that we have about Dylan Raiola and where he's going to be in the months ahead. And I didn't expect that Matt Rhule would say, well, if he's here,
yeah.
But I wanted to gauge his reaction. Like, how is he going to answer this? How is he going to what's he going to choose to the path that he's going to take on this? And I was a little surprised that he went there with, Dylan needs to take matters into his own hands and not rely on the people around him to get better, because I think Dylan does that about as well as anybody in the program. So there you are.
Either way, whether he's here or not, I appreciated the tone from Rhule on Raiola there. In the past, it's been, Dylan's not the problem, and
Sure.
we need everybody else to be good around Dylan to help Dylan and all these things. And now he flipped it. It was, Dylan
was the opposite.
Dylan's going to take this thing into his own hands. Which either way, once again, whether he's here or not, I appreciate the tone quite a lot more than what it's been.
Right. On the final thing on the quarterbacks, on the subject of quarterbacks, Steve Sipple asked Matt Rhule if he could see a scenario where both TJ Lateef and Dylan Raiola return next season. And Rhule was evasive on it. He said, I'm not going to get into speculation about transfers. He said that's, quote, fatalistic talk to start to envision things that might happen that you don't want to happen. But of course he wants all of his quarterbacks. He said he wants all of his players back, which that's a bit of an overstep. But in a perfect world where you don't have a 105-man limit, you want all your players back. But they need some room for portal ads for sure. So personally, I think he wants the best for all of his players, and I think he believes the best for Dylan Raiola and TJ Lateef right now is for them to return to Nebraska. So we will await more resolution on those topics, and that may be what happens. That may be they may both be here. You may have one, you may have none.
We'll see. Do we go straight ahead to the football picks here in the Big Ten and the SEC, or do you want to mention Creighton, Nebraska on Sunday? I know we can talk about this a little bit tomorrow on the mailbag show too.
Yeah, let's get a question. Somebody asked us a question about hoops, about Creighton, Nebraska hoops. I'm not going to ask. We're not going to make predictions on that game, but we will discuss it. I'll make a prediction. What am I saying? I'm not covering the game. I'm not. Yeah, that was
I predict things all the time. I predict things that I know nothing about sometimes. Like these. Let's see. Big Ten. It's the least consequential number 1 versus number 2 game of all time. In
my gosh!
Football. Ohio
Is it
State.
though?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're both getting buys, I think, unless somebody wins by a blowout. So
Heisman race. It's consequential for the Heisman race.
Oh, which is very consequential. It's
going to change somebody's life.
There you go.
It's going to change Fernando Mendoza's life or Julian Sayin. I don't even know if Julian Sayin wins the Heisman if he has a good game and Ohio State beats Indiana. Last week he beat Michigan through 3 touchdowns in the Big House, into the huge streak of losses for Ohio State, and he didn't even get a bump in the Heisman race, or so it seemed. Anyway,
Ohio State has been number 1 all season after beating Texas in week 1, and they've held on to it, and so it's been pretty consistent. They get the nod here as 4.5 point favorites against the number 2 Hoosiers, 7:00 on Fox on Saturday night.
Buckeyes. I'll take the Buckeyes and the points.
I'll take Kurt Cignetti in Indiana. I don't. know if I want to. I don't know if I think they'll win. I kind of expected this to be a little bit larger in terms of the spread, but yeah, I think this is a really good game. And I think Indiana really takes it to them. With that being said, Indiana is going to get slowed down because of Ohio State's talent, the way they play. They're kind of they're just going to steamroll you. They're just going to try and do it that way and move it slow. And so I think this game will be close. I'm thinking about a 3-point game.
As I watched the game last week, the big game, the Michigan Ohio State, and I heard Joel Klatt like running down the Ohio State defense in the first quarter and talking about how there were 4 first-round picks on the Ohio State starting defense. It's just as if that was a normal thing, and it is kind of a normal thing for Ohio State. It's like, well, this guy, Arvell Reese, up here on the edge, you hadn't heard of him last year, but he's trending to be the number 1 overall non-quarterback taken in the draft, and it's an embarrassment of riches that Indiana just can't match. Indiana can do it with scheme and will and attitude and belief, as we've seen when the Hoosiers played at Penn State, at Oregon, at Iowa. Think about winning at those 3 locations in the same year, and they did it. So all that said, Ohio State wins this game.
All right. And in the SEC, Georgia is 2.5-point favorites against Alabama. This is a rematch from September 27th, where the Tide won 24-21.
Yeah, big CFP implications as Alabama get in as a 3-loss team out of the SEC with an at-large. If the Dogs win this game, that's the direction I'm going to go. I'm just playing the favorites this weekend, and I'll say that Georgia wins and covers.
I agree with you on this one. I think we're probably dealing with another close game, another 3-point game here. But tough to beat a team twice. Give me the
Does Kalen DeBoer then pack up his bags and go to State College?
The Kalen DeBoer thing might not be over. I don't know. Penn State's probably just going to have to hire Terry Smith at this point.
Jeff Brom turning down the Nittany Lions on Wednesday. Who will it be today? Who will it be Thursday that turns down Penn State?
Yeah, which Group of 5 coach will turn it down now? It's going to be wild. All right, that's it for us. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. For your second listen, Locked On Big Ten has you covered. Find it on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.